terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things.
We will not be bullied.
Like we told minerals to U.S. were not just beggars.
The president did want them to say, if you are going to fire, we'll take it as a declaration of war.
I can't be threatened by Zuma. I defeated Zuma.
You're dealing with Jacob Zuma. Every stage is a theater for him.
We're not sending help to criminals. We're going to smoke them out. They will come out.
There has not been agreement in terms of parties in the executive.
The executive must come here.
The people of Palestine, they're denied the right to enjoy the freedoms we so love.
Mr. Papo, thank you so much for allowing us to have this interview with you, and welcome to the Sunday Times. I guess my first question would be that the ANC did this diagnostic evaluation of this particular province, and they came up with a decision as the NWC to reconfigure this province. And with you and Mr. Amos Masondo and Banyaza Lusufi at the helm, when you got that call to coordinate the structure, what was your initial reaction, and why did you agree to it? It's a mammoth task, and I think you'd agree with me on that.
When I got the call, which was followed by a formal letter, once they finalized the structure in terms of the whole PTT. Remember, it's reinforcing. It's a reinforcement of the previous PEC. So people were saying, how do you reconfigure? You create a structure which reinforces. My view was that joining the African National, being recruited to the African National Congress, for me, when I was recruited in 1986 to the ANC underground, my understanding was that it's a lifelong commitment, and that the ANC will, from time to time, request you to do certain specific tasks, which may not be in your immediate plans. But also because I live in a province, it's not good to live in a province where the organization which used to have, which got 2/3 majority in 1999 and 70% in 2004 ends up at 35%. For me, as a personal and political level, every ANC member must take measures to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. As an ANC member, you took an oath when you joined the ANC that you'll do everything to ensure that the ANC work is done well. So I took it as one of the commitments and the oath I took when I was recruited into the ANC, later formally became part of the ANC.
I'm going to ask a mischievous question, because in the past, provincial task teams have been a playground of factions in the ANC, where those who are in a position of authority and power tend to use those positions to better enable them when conferences come into play. Do you have any ambitions as it relates to in 9 months or so when the ANC has to go into a conference and elect a new chairperson?
No, absolutely not. For me, it's implementing the conference resolution to unite, to rebuild, to renew and strengthen the organization. I've had my chance to lead this province for a full term. To coming back to leading the organization, for me, doesn't make sense. You don't have to be active in the ANC by being in an elected position. I was continuing to do ANC work even if I was not a secretary. At the time when I was in the PEC, as an ordinary PEC member, I was in the International Relations Subcommittee, and also doing work in the Political Education Subcommittee. And now I was not in the PEC. I was continuing to do they appointed me as a national deputy spokesperson. And I was not in any elected position in the ANC. But I was appointed by the NEC to be the national deputy spokesperson. So our members must begin to understand that you don't have to be in an elected position to do work. If the organizational structures are functioning well at the branch level, at the regional level, even in the subcommittees, in the past, subcommittees of the PEC will identify other ANC members who are not in elected positions, who may be expert in areas of those subcommittees. So there's no myself, Brahms Masondo. Brahms Masondo was an NEC member for 10 years. So we're not having intentions to, because there are other people in the province who can lead. The process of renewal will identify those people who might have been inactive, but they wanted to participate. They didn't know how to participate. That's why our subcommittees, for example, we've said identify people in Gauteng who are ANC members who can actually augment your team in the subcommittee, who are expert, because ANC is the party which is the most educated people in the liberation movement. We have got the most, a lot of educated people in the ANC who are just branch members. Some of them have got PhDs, but they are experts in almost every profession. But you see, the culture of the ANC has not been to publicize its members who are educated, because education was seen as empowering yourself, but it's for service to the community. That's why members of the ANC, usually when they graduate, they get achievements. They don't post it on social media, many of them.
Well,
no, many of them don't. Those who do, it's a small number who do. But the bulk of ANC members don't post. And generally in the alliance, people, I mean, in parliament, for example, we had MPs with more than 2 master's degrees in our caucus. So what I'm saying to you is that to answer you directly, we don't intend to do that. We just want to put the organization back on its correct footing, particularly from the local level. That's why, for example, some of the conditions we are putting for conferences is that you should focus on members who have to renew their membership, not new members. Because new members, there's a procedure to being a member of the ANC. You don't just join and become a member. There's a 6-month period, and then you cannot be in the executive committee immediately when you have not completed a particular number of years. So it's a renewal, and that renewal was caused by when we're still setting up the membership system. So they must focus on that. Secondly, they must focus on community work, identify 1 or 2 campaigns in the community, which is prominent in that community. It might be GBV, it might be crime in the area, it might be schools which are not functioning properly to support the school governing bodies, it might be health facilities which are not functioning properly to support any committees to function. 1 or 2 campaigns, and then do the foundation course, so that we don't surprise each other with members who don't even understand the ANC constitution. They don't understand its policies and principles. That foundation course, because the foundation course has an element of how ANC members should relate to people who are in government. Your role there is not interference, it's support and ensuring that programs are implemented. So that foundation course may take a number of sessions at the branch level. So when you rush to a conference, we have not done those basics, community program for a number of months. We have not looked at renewal of the member, because firstly, you cannot do foundation course with people who are not in good standing. You don't do foundation course to people who are supporters, because they have no obligation to sit in a foundation course of the ANC. That is why the issue of membership renewal, the issue of the foundation course, the issue of doing community programs, it's very central to you, because those are the issues you must then go and discuss in a conference. The community programs you would have done at the local level. We have done this. How do we now consolidate the work we've done in health, in education, in safety, in local economic development? The stokvels in the community, pulling them together and advising them. You can actually pull resources and start a economic job yourselves. You can create income for yourselves. Those are things which over a period people were not focusing on them. They were just obsessed with just being conference, being elected. But that does not actually change lives of people. It's an internal ANC process. It has nothing to do with the people conference.
I want to go back to what you're saying right now is that you veered off course in terms of your focus. You had a report, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was during the time of Mr. Makura, I think he was the secretary at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, where you looked at the ANC in the province and you realized that the ANC was social distancing, if I'm correct, that's the word that you used, in terms of its
focus
interaction
with people,
and connection with the people. From that time where you made that report, you had that realization to now, how did you not course correct? What do you think were the reasons why you were unable to course correct? And what's the difference now?
There were also a lot of other things where some people deliberately did not want to implement organizational programs. Remember the conflict which happened in the ANC towards Polokwane, which led to people splitting away to form COPE. Others then split to form this EFF and others just, that whole environment created an environment where certain decisions are not implemented at the local, because implementation of ANC decisions has to happen in communities, because that's where the ANC strength has always been. Now, when you have got people who are not implementing decisions, for example, we took a decision that let's form sub-branches. We even sponsored a resolution as Gauteng that below a branch at the voting district, let's form a sub-branch. We outline the coordinating functions of that structure. Under the sub-branch, let's divide the voting district into blocks and have conveners and coordinators. And then that machinery we normally use during the election, we were trying to push that it becomes a permanent machinery of the organization. Because if you have got street coordinators, you give a member that you are responsible for your street and 2-3 other streets in your area. You will be able to pick up and then we give those members homes. In that plan, we said at least every member must be given 50 homes in an area. They must do everything to know what is happening in those 50 homes. If there are more members in a branch, the homes will be less. But we're looking in an area with 5,000 homes. You have got 500, you have got 100 members. You see, you have got 100 members. There are 5,000 homes. If you divide, it's how many homes? We worked that program, because people were focusing on things which are not important. The obsession with being a branch leader, the obsession with being a regional leader. We're saying to them, that is not a priority of the ANC anymore. So if you don't like that your job is just to be a branch leader, a regional leader, you must change that attitude. Because if you don't change that attitude, that is going to be in conflict with the renewal, the unity, rebuilding and renewal. It's not you. Your attitude towards organizational work will define whether you are part of this rebuilding process. Some people may walk away because I get it. I'm just here to self-serve.
And are you prepared for that?
Yes, we are. Because nobody's going to tell you, if you are enforcing the constitution of the organization, you are enforcing its principles and policies. Nobody say, no, we'll not elect you in a conference. That's the difference now, because we're not enforcing our personal opinions. We're enforcing the constitution. We're enforcing the resolutions of conference, both provincial and national. And people who, if you are in the ANC, you don't want the implementation of the constitution of the ANC. You don't want the implementation of its conference resolutions. You don't want the implementation of its programs of action. Why are you an ANC member? And the renewal has to be like there. Your purpose of being in the ANC is the implementation of its programs. And those who are not implementing programs cannot be part of the African National Congress. You don't have to take you to a DC, but clearly you are in a wrong. That's why we start with the foundation course, because some people may not have been properly schooled in ANC policies, its principles, its values, and so on. You don't start by giving people a deadline. That's why majority of people have to go through a foundation course. That course explains why you are in the African National Congress.
I actually want to go into what you've just said about people there's that, pitfall, for lack of a better word, where maybe some of your branch members or your members are unaware of the principles and the core values of the ANC. If I believe it was the 2021 elections, if I'm correct, where the then elections head, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, raised to us the infiltration of syndicates within the ANC and criminals within the ANC. And I believe that also Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe also raised this issue of infiltration of branches and regions of the ANC, particularly here in Gauteng. And I wonder if you have observed this and how enormous is this challenge for you in ridding yourself of this decay within your branches of the ANC? And how do you ensure that you resolve this within the 9 months period which you are given?
Remember, 9 months is the minimum you can be given. If you have not done the work by that time, the NEC extends the mandate. So we're starting with 9 months. Before 9 months ends, they must assess and then say whether they terminate the mandate or they extend it. Remember, being part of a governing party attracts all sorts of people, and the ANC is a reflection of our own communities and families. What's happening in our families and in our communities is what you see in the African National Congress being the biggest. Sometimes we make a mistake of expecting saints in the ANC, when in our families we've got delinquents, criminals. In other societal structures like the religious sector, we've got criminals even in the religious places where it's supposed to be the custodians of morality. ANC is not its job is not to build a morality of individuals. People join the ANC over 18. The value system they would have already built, and it becomes very difficult for the ANC to do it. So part of the work the ANC do must be augmented in the community by other sectors of society to prepare people for political involvement. Because when we recruit people already damaged by decay in their at family level and society, so we are also appealing to other sectors to help the ANC so that by the time we recruit people into the ANC, at least the value system they have is not a value system which is in conflict with the African National Congress, because the humane values of the African National Congress must be augmented. But what we are going to do is that so we're not surprised that there would have been people who joined the ANC to self-serve themselves or to pursue their personal delinquent and criminal activities. And usually they are a minority in the organization. The bulk of our members who are working class, employed and unemployed, in Gauteng, urban, but in the ANC, the nature of our membership is working class. It's not people who work. Even unemployed people are part of the working class. It's just that they don't have a job. They are urban and rural, employed and unemployed. That's the more than 2/3 of the ANC constituency. So people even who flaunt wealth and so on, it's a small minority of our members. Majority of our members feel the pain which the rest of our communities feel of unemployment. So we will apply the constitution, but we think that if we create a critical mass of members at branch level who understand values of the organization, they will be very circumspect to elect people who are not following those values. Because if you have got a majority of members who understand the purpose of the ANC, its function as a governing party now in GPU and GNU, they will be very, very conscious about the type of people they elect. Because you find in a BEC, majority of people are just good people. There will be a few 4 out of that BEC who are delinquents. Some of them may have been even in the officials' positions. So what they do, those delinquents, they collapse the branch by not having the branch to function. So we are not allowed. For example, there must be standard reinstating frequency. When should a branch executive committee meet? It has to be reinforced. When should members of the ANC constitutionally meet? At a minimum, you can have more meetings. If it says once every 2 months, a branch can have a calendar of monthly meetings, because it says at least once every 2 months. It means you can have 4 in 2 months, because at least gives you space to have more meetings. What kind of things are discussed in those meetings? For example, we started piloting in Gauteng the sub-branch model in Tshwane. When there were problems, a lot of problems in Tshwane, we said to them, if a BEC branch executive committee meets, it can divide its agenda into 3 items. The first item on the agenda will be adoption of minutes and quick matters of arising. And we said to them, you must have a table where report already indicated done, not done, what, so that takes an hour. The next hour, the first hour must be political analysis of your ward. That's the first hour. You must analyze the political analysis of your ward. who are the contending political forces in your ward, which are there. What are the other social forces which are existing in your ward? It may be NGOs, NPOs, which are doing work which the ANC aims to actually do. After doing that, you then look at what that community problem. The second hour must be community issues which the branch must take up. After you have analyzed who you can work with in taking up those issues. Because if you understand who works in the community, when you come to the issue of community issues, you know, we can work with that NGO, that NPO in taking up GBV. On health, we can work with that. In fact, strengthen, assist it to get money from government in terms of the NGO, because most of them will be enthusiastic and very humane members of the community. The second hour. The third hour must be menace and matters arising. That's an internal navel gazing issue of how you run compliance issues. So if we reinstate that kind of branch functionality, it will disrupt people who try to collapse branches by not making them functional, not convening BEC meeting, not attending, because sometimes it's not convening. Somebody deliberately doesn't attend a meeting so that it doesn't have a quorum. You can see it's disruption in the organization. No apology is tendered. If people don't apologize for meetings, the BECs must call those people and understand they may be having personal problems.
Are you able to instill that discipline?
This is part of the unity and renewal.
This is part
if
of
that branch does not do that, the constitution is empowering us to dissolve that BEC.
What I'm asking is, are you able to instill that discipline? Because you can talk about this as part of unity and renewal.
We did.
But you've had unity and renewal.
No, but we have tried. Actually, we started.
We started
to do it.
Do you think you can do it within the 9 months and correct the corrosive environment in which the ANC finds itself here?
I think generally in the organization, many of our members are not happy with the status quo of what is happening. So we've got already a critical mass of our members who want unity and renewal. Because I told you, majority of our members are ordinary community members who want progress in their communities. You then have this section, a small level of these people who infiltrate the organization to disrupt it, to cause disorder in the organization, to delay its work. And we're not surprised that happens, because when you're a governing party, your opponents may also do that to actually disrupt you, delay your implementation and so on. They can play sleepers in the organization to do that kind of work. But we started, if you check that period before 2016, we started charging people for delinquent behavior and so on. But you need to consolidate this critical mass of your members so that they understand that at provincial level, at the regional level, they've got people who agree that the organization must run. And themselves, they must ensure that when they elect leaders, they don't elect delinquents to lead. So that's part of our work of rebuilding the organization. When we've got a critical 2/3 of your members who agree that, then you are able to isolate this delinquents in the organization. They will walk away themselves from the organization. You don't even have to take disciplinary action against them. They will simply walk away because the environment in the organization is such that our focus is to deal with community problems, to ensure that people who are in government who have actually elected, because sometimes people confuse deployments and employment. Deployments are people who are elected in the organization who then get elected in government. Those are the deployees. Public servants are not deployees of the organization. They are employees of the government. So I'm saying that our aim is to give confidence to many of our members who are worried about the disruptions, the disorder, and so on by this minority element in the organization. Because if you go to a meeting, the person who disrupts will be 10 people out of 120 people in a meeting. So we are determined as a PTT to actually deal, because some of the cases are not political matters. Disrupting a meeting and violence is not politics, it's criminality. So we're going to encourage our members when those things happen to open cases as members of the branch, and they must be supported by the leadership at branch level to open criminal cases against those people. And if those people are charged, there's a step aside in the ANC.
Before we get to, because I want to speak to you about local government, and service delivery. But before we get to that, I want to finish
provincial government
and provincial government also. But
provincial.
But we are going to the local government elections, which is why I think the focus should be around local government. But I want us to finish off around the structures of the ANC, and perhaps can you clarify to us or guide us in terms of how the PTT intends to intervene in regions? Are you going to allow for regional conferences to go ahead? I think Johannesburg had been planning for a regional conference.
No, 4 regions already.
4 regions. Are you prepared to go to those conferences, or will they have to halt for the work to be done? Because
yes,
I imagine that, yes, what?
We already agreed in the working committee that the basis of going to a conference should have been you have renewed enough members. You would have gone through the foundation phase of members, not branch leaders, members, organizing workshops in the branches to take them to. That's why we're creating the numbers. There was a meeting to workshop provincial leaders, regional leaders. For example, we are going to our own PTT will have a foundation course this month, so that we have a pool of leaders who can assist to create a bigger pool in the regions. That second part, and community work. Running same time. You are renewing members. You are running foundation. Those who have been renewed, you conduct foundation course for all of them and all the modules. You also do 1 or 2 community programs. And then you go to a BBGM and have a meeting to discuss. In fact, it will be better. You are all in good standing. You have undergone foundation course. You have done community work. So you talk about real things when you meet in that meeting to prepare conference. What do we take to the conference in terms of our area, our zone, and in this region on matters which affect communities? So if it's just an administrative process, people just discuss, we're nominating candidates, who are actually moving away, because that's not how a branch general meeting should actually be conducted. So the condition of a conference happening either in May or March should be based on the majority of the branches in this region have undergone these 3 areas of work. They've renewed members and strengthened the branch machinery. They have actually done for a foundation course. The third element will be doing at least one or two community programs, which is a major concern of those. If there are 3 programs, people can do them, because we expect the rebuilding will include also having subcommittees of BECs. Because that's another problem where we were struggling, because if you have got subcommittees which are not existing or they don't function, you'll not be able to follow up on community issues, because you'll have a subcommittee on education and health, subcommittee on community safety, subcommittee on economic development, subcommittee on those subcommittees are part of the rebuilding, because you cannot have them in the province and in the region, but the branches don't have them. And in the local level, there will be ANC members who might have even expert knowledge on those areas. Those people can also be, even if they are not BEC members, can be drawn into that. So that is to be the determinant of whether you go to a conference. But obviously we cannot say conference cannot happen this year, because the ANC believes in respecting its own constitution. So the time of that conference will be depend on whether branches will have done these issues would have agreed to in the working committee, which will most likely be endorsed by, and we're engaging our regional leaders that a regional conference is an internal democratic process of the ANC. It has nothing to do with whether problems are solved in a community. So you must differentiate internal issues of the ANC and community. The ANC has got internal processes, but its function is to work with communities in solving their own problems. So we're engaging them. So it will not be, we shall stop you because there's a new PTT. Your condition of going to, have you done these 3 areas of work? And if you have done them, then you prepare for the branch by annual general meeting to prepare for a conference. And what should be in that agenda of that meeting should be what is going on in that ward. And how do we begin to strengthen the African National Congress in this ward? And in going to that conference, the issues which are concerns of these people in this community must be reflected in the type of decisions that conference take. You must also understand that contesting conferences for the sake of contesting conferences among each other It's not. Because some of there are not fundamental differences between people. We will generally like a situation when people go to biannual general meetings and conferences. They talk among themselves about how we need each other as members of the ANC at this point. So fracturing and creating in the name of democracy and creating tensions in the organization is not the ideal way. ANC will not prevent people. But you can imagine in areas where people agree, have a consensus about leadership, officials in a branch or in a sub-region, in a region, there's more unity there. And then they contest only additional members. Because usually conflicts start when people contest positions of officials. Now, if officials agree, when I was elected, there was consensus about our election. We did not have a vote for officials. That is why we could do work so easily, because there's no one who feels, no, my opinion of leadership didn't emerge and so on. From 2014 to 2018, there was a lot of, that's why so we're saying the comrades who were leading, because they found a lot of problems, which started, a lot of them mounted towards 2016, post 2016. It became worse after 2016. So that's why we're saying, comrades, whatever you wanted to do as a leadership, now we've reinforced you. Let's do it together.
I wonder about this work that you have to do together, and to some degree, I sympathize with you, and I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, you entering into an environment where, for instance, I think it was 2022 when the province went to an election, to elect Mr. Lesufi as the chair. And there were two factions, Amapanya, if I remember, and the Adiwele. And there was the dominant faction in that PEC. And those divisions carried right through until now. There's still that belief that Mr. Mayile controlled the PEC up until you were elected. Appointed. I wonder if you think you will be able to create a harmonious PTT, considering that you still have to contend with the factions and the divisions that were instilled in that 2022 elective conference and beyond.
Anybody who brings negativity in the PTT will be removed, and as SG made it clear. You are going to work harmoniously to rebuild the organization. Bringing factional interests into this PTT, we will not tolerate that kind of behavior. Bygones are bygones. People must cease their little pettiness and whatever. We have a job to do, to have strong branches throughout Gauteng, to have a strong alliance, because that's another function, is that we must have a strong alliance in Gauteng. We must have strong communities who feel that branches of the ANC work with them in dealing with their problem. Because we want South Africans to be part of solving problems, not to expect somebody to come and save them. South Africans must be given the tools to be able, assisted by the ANC, to solve problems they experience on a day-to-day basis. You can't expect President Ramaphosa to come and solve your delinquent child who runs away for a week. It's irresponsible parenting. There's nothing President Ramaphosa can deal with that situation. Your child gets into drugs. They can help you to get rehabilitation for the child. But the route towards drug addiction is not a problem which is caused by Ramaphosa. So I'm saying our attitude is that all PTT members must focus. Don't bring any factional interest into the PTT. It will not be tolerated. And the SG made it clear when he actually met the PTT to not bring negativity into the structure. If you feel that I am going to continue with negativity and factional interests, rather decline to be a PTT member.
There was talks about murmur about court action to interdict or try to prevent this PTT. Or has there been any developments around that?
I don't know of any papers which were served. Okay. I think it was a murmur but the SG made it clear that any try to actually disrupt the work which we are doing, it will be defended in the court of law. But all the comrades have recommitted themselves to try and work harmoniously in a unified fashion, whether they were in the previous PC or the current, the ones who were brought in. All the comrades have recommitted. When we met, we were formed to the national leadership that will try and work in a harmonious way. We'll leave whatever may have actually cost us to be divided and so on, because it's in the interest of a strong African National Congress.
Can you take this PTT to conference within 9 months? To an elective conference within 9 months?
That's why I told you the mandate of the PTT is only next year. Remember, we went to 23, 24, 25. The renewal of the mandate of the provincial leadership is next year. So we will have to work towards that, but the working systematically and step to ensure that by the time we go to a conference, we have a proper functioning organization, a united organization, a deliberate and purposeful organization at all levels.
So your priority is the local government elections, I would imagine.
Absolutely. That's where you begin to as you are rebuilding the organization, you test its capacity through the local government elections. That's why thinking that you go to a conference is linked to a local government is not. Because that conference has nothing to do with people's issues in the community. It's a democratic process in the African National Congress. It happens to have, ANC has always respected its to run its organization democratically. But we must now go back to the values of the African National Congress, of comradeship, of unity, because majority of members of the ANC believe in that. There's a section in the ANC which, as you say, would have joined the ANC for other interests, and they disrupted the work of the organization and so on. And the ANC, because historically believes in rehabilitating people, but criminality cannot be rehabilitated through ANC process. Somebody disagree in a meeting, you can rehabilitate that person in terms of the nature, how they disagree. But somebody who disrupts and assaults people in a meeting, that is not political disagreement. It's criminal behavior. So we must separate political disagreements with criminality. So we would say that we'll work on it every time we assess, and then we look at when then do we plan for a conference. For us, the national leadership expects us to do that work, and it will be evaluated after 9 months. If they think that we have not done enough, we'll hear from them what they think should happen. But because we are not, as I said when I initially started, my interest is not to be a leader, a leader, or in the province, because I was given a chance for the full term.
I want to speak about local government now, because your province is a province which is unique from any other province in terms of the high concentration of the middle strata and even the black middle strata. And if you're tracing how the ANC in terms of stats in elections, your decline within that strata started in 2009. And then there was the emergence of Hope and EFF and the DA as well, which took some of that vote. You might agree or maybe disagree. Enlighten me away from the ANC. And the ANC retreated in that it started focusing on the township, the poor.
Its core constituency.
Its core constituency. So is there a specific program to go back and try to regain the middle class vote, the black middle class vote?
Because you were calling it correctly, middle strata, because there's nothing called the middle class. In class terms, we only have the capitalist class and the working class. This one in the middle is a strata, because their location in the economy and everything doesn't make them a class. But anyway, you're using a commonly used term.
Yes.
No, we have not. We agreed in the 2022 conference. We agreed that we should go back to that strata, because we have always organized in that strata to our members being members of professional bodies, professional association. That strata itself need to be organized, better organized, as professionals and as the section of society which have had access to skills training and development. So we have our subcommittees must deal with all the classes and strata which are part of our motive forces. The working class is the main motive forces. The middle strata is part of the motive force we recognize. And we are going to work through our subcommittees. They must focus on both the working class, which is our core motive force, the middle strata, and those people, the small number of people who may have access, who may control the means of production. So we said part of the renewal will be organizing in that sector, among the middle strata, either through their organizations they are organized with or individually. Because some of those members, as we're doing renewal, we're going to ask them to renew their membership to the organization. They would have been part of the organization. From 2009, as you said, it started that decline there. But it was not only about voting for other parties. They would have formed this number of people who would not have voted. So it's both vote.
Stayaways.
Yes. Because they have a sense that we are not doing proper things. We are being misrepresented by these people who have joined the organization for wrong and doing wrong things in the organization. Part of the renewal will be both going to the working class, because ANC mostly will find it will be middle strata and the working class. They must go to both. That's why you must renew the organization and renew membership and recruit both the working class, people from the working class and from the middle strata. So it's part of our work there. As part of the rebuilding of the organization and renewal of the organization, we have to target that, the middle strata. So it's part of our work, basically, both working class and middle strata.
What do you attribute that strata, that specific strata, whether working or middle strata, moving away from the ANC, considering that they are the direct beneficiaries of the ANC? If you're talking about BEE, those are the beneficiaries.
No, I understand what you say.
Yes.
We think that our assessment is that some of the things which were happening in the organization by this grouping, which would have done self-serving, they are not committed to service in the doing what the ANC is about. We think that could have been, that's one of the reasons why they decided, no, let me wait and see whether the ANC will do what is correct. So I mustn't vote. So they don't have confidence in other political parties, but they don't vote. And when those two sections don't vote, it then affects the turnout for the support of the ANC, because those people are still thinking the ANC is their home, but they want this home to be cleaned. And also, some of the things which happen in government and people in government, so the conflation of the party and the state, where they think every wrong thing happening in government is ANC, which is incorrect, because majority of public servants of South Africa are not ANC members. Both in the regions, in the local government, provincial, they are not ANC members. Majority of public servants of South Africa. Otherwise, we'll be one of the biggest organizations in the country. If half of the public servants of South Africa were our members, we'll be having millions of our people who are members. So we've got people who work in government who do wrong things. Because we are in the political office, in a constitutional state, summary dismissal in South Africa is not allowed. You cannot just wake up and summarily dismiss somebody in government without a hearing and so on. So we think improving the running of the government will also attract those people back into the organization. That's why the president emphasizes this issue of an effective and efficient state, so that the way it runs, it's so that for example, there are cases you run speedy disciplinary processes. They don't take 2 years, but people delay in disciplinary processes. They can filibuster and so on. They know they will still continue to earn. Run cases of discipline in a transparent, in a legal fashion, but case must not long. So somebody thinks that problems in the state, the ANC, but our SG cannot instruct a DDG in government, charge so and so. But the political head must run the department in such a manner that when there are problems in that department, using the law, action is taken speedily, and cases are run of DC are run speedily to decide whether the person should be given a chance through a warning or a suspension or whatever. And those who are involved in criminal cases, sometimes the delay is not in the department, it's with the law enforcement agencies. So we need an effective state to convince people that the ANC is a political organization. Government and state has got its own instruments and mechanisms of running. So thinking that everything which happens in the state, it's ANC, we think that South Africans must begin to understand is not correct, because there are many people who do wrong things in the state who are not ANC people. I'm talking about stealing a box of paper in an office, stealing stationery in an office, misusing time of work for you to go and sit in a restaurant or a coffee bar the whole afternoon. And that thing is not related to your work. You are stealing time from South African citizens. It's not ANC. It's just South Africans who work in the state who don't have a sense of service in the state. So we think that those two could have actually caused them to shift. But they must help us to also deal with those problems in the state, because you cannot do things. President Ramaphosa must arrest so-and-so. You can see people don't understand. How can President Ramaphosa arrest people? President Ramaphosa must charge people. It means he must just pick up a phone. So-and-so needs to be arrested. It's unconstitutional.
I want to go into the decisions that have been made prior and just get your take on, in terms of mayoral decisions, the coalitions that you've entered into as the ANC in local government, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni and Tshwane. And there has been
you mean during that chaos when mayors were changing left, right, and that's the period?
Yes, that period.
When there were minority mayors.
When there were minority.
Yeah, put your question.
It cost you. It cost you in terms of your credibility as the ANC, because what you are saying essentially is that people will always look at the ANC, even though the mayor is an Al Jamaa mayor. But the fact that the ANC is within that coalition, it becomes the burden of the ANC. Is there a way to resolve this? Because there's also a question is, do you not have capacity, for instance, in Tshwane to elect your own mayor in Tshwane? You're the biggest political party in Tshwane in that coalition. Why not elect your own mayor? Here in Johannesburg, complaints about Mr. Dada Morero every other day about his performance here in Johannesburg. Do you think that there needs to be interventions as it relates to that? Let's start with Johannesburg.
No, Morero has not even completed a year. I think it's important. That time, ANC wanted to take over the municipalities as the biggest political party. But some of the coalition partners were not agreeing. And then you have to compromise with a mayor who comes from a small party. That was not the intention of the ANC. ANC wanted our own comrades to be mayors.
Do you change that? Do you change it?
It has changed now. That's why you see now they had those parties like EFF had to be spoken to. But how do you explain this fact that the ANC is the biggest political party? And then it's not actually the because that's the principle generally of coalitions. The biggest party takes, unless you don't have a relationship with that party, but parties which are around the table, internationally, continentally, the big party with the biggest number of votes become the one who have got the mayor and the more numbers of executive positions. And then the rest are shared between. That was our intention. But if other political parties don't want it, but you want some to be part of the process of making changes, that's what happened. But then it was reviewed. And then what's happened. We think that in Johannesburg, a lot of problems happened during that period when we were not in charge of the executive. And that our mayor, Morero, part of the work he's doing now is to deal with that problem. For example, in billing.
You've got confidence in this.
Yes, absolutely. Because, for example, remember, Dada was actually working in the Office of Finance before he became secretary. He was an official in the city. He was the head of the office of MMC Pakstau when he was the MMC for finance. So he has a technical understanding of services in the city, billing systems, how the SOEs of the city works. Because he used to be a senior official. I mean, he was the head of the office of MMC Dada. He didn't start being a secretary, remember. He went into the public service first. And then because of his political experience, in managing those who are, he could be a better person to manage people who are in government, having been in government. Because if you don't have a sense of administration, it becomes difficult. Have not been in an executive level, it's very difficult to manage people who are in government. That's why so he's unraveling some of those problems which happened. For example, the problems in billing, they became extreme during that period. And they tried, but if you don't have the levers of making executive decisions, it becomes very difficult to take certain actions. So we know that he's actually dealing with some of the problems in some of the SOEs in the city. He's having a tour currently of the regions of the city with all the agencies of the city in a multidisciplinary fashion to deal with issues of illegal immigration, illegal connections for water and electricity, cleaning by pick it up, people who are from the Joburg parks to cut grass and so on. So they visit the region with all the SOEs of the city and deal with all the problems they would have picked up before that visit. So he's on a tour of all the regions, spend the week here, next, and then follow up to ensure that whatever they would have been picked up, it's actually sorted out. It was not sorted out that week. We know that we have seen it even in the city center, because he started with the city of, in the inner city. He's going to other regions. So in our engagement with them, it was not only him, the regional officials they said, this is what now the MMCs are doing, unraveling some of the problems which would have happened. Remember in 2016, Joburg had reserves in many of the agencies, in Joburg Water, in City Power. And what happened to those reserves from between 2016 when we were in opposition? And then we're told that things happened. What happened to the reserves of the city of Joburg? So we've got full confidence in Comrade Dada as a mayor. And he needs to be given support by us at the provincial level with the government in the province. They work very closely with the provincial government. Part of the problem, when we were out of power, the intergovernmental relations suffered. Provincial government could not do certain things in the city of Johannesburg without the cooperation of the city. Now, there's a synergy between the local government and the province, even its department, which the Johannesburg have. Because some departments Joburg don't have, like education, they don't have education. It's a national and a provincial concurrent power that they've got health, they've got social development. There's now concurrence. MECs and MMCs have meetings now. And the officials are now working together to implement the Gauteng 13 priorities. We think, and one of the advantages, he's sort of an action-oriented person. But Dada also understands that if you have an MMC, you must give that MMC a space to do their work. You can't behave, you are a mayor. Everything is you. Why do you then have MMCs? Why do you have departments? Why do you have SOEs? So, we've got clarity between us and the leadership of Johannesburg that the MMCs together with the mayor, they must follow up on all these issues they would have picked up as part of their 100 days.
Is that what you told you mentioned before we started that you had a meeting with the president as the PTT? Is that form part of the conversation?
Absolutely. We was that there must be closer relationship between departments of province and the municipalities. National department must also be in the picture.
And does the president have confidence in whom the ANC has installed as the mayor of the biggest city?
Remember, the national executive plays a role when mayors are appointed in metros.
Yes.
So they would have actually participated, the officials. So it's not, the province then takes the thing to the national officials. Remember, Dada was a mayor and then there was a technical board he had to leave. And he had been interviewed. He's academically qualified. He's got administrative and political expertise. All of us need to give support because you can have a good mayor. You must also have good MMCs, have the ANC running well to give you support and not interfering in your work, calling officials to meetings you have not employed an official, you call an HOD to a meeting. It cannot happen, that thing. Even us in the PTT, we are going to make it clear. Public servants report to political principals and not to the ANC. The people who report to the ANC is us. It's MECs and MMCs. Those are our deployees. It's not the HOD of a department who has a meeting with the political leader of the ANC. So we need to normalize the public service. It must run properly. That's how, for years, ANC has been run in the province, where we don't call HODs to meetings. So we have full confidence in the mayors who have elected. They have to deal with a number of difficulties. That's why national government and provincial government must support them and ensure that they fulfill their mandates. The 13 priorities of Gauteng also impact on local government. Fortunately, so there's a synergy between the work of provincial government and local government. Now, the visit of the president in our province is to say, where does national government fit in? We know there have been joint meetings between national departments, provincial departments, and local departments already. They are happening regularly now, to ensure that there's a synergy between the three spheres. The dual ministers, MECs, and MMCs in meetings, mayors meeting with the president and the premier, so that we open up log jams if they would have happened with the senior officials in those meetings. Because some of those things are budgeted for, but the slowness in implementing them. So the political leadership must now say, no, but we cannot have a situation where in the second quarter of the financial year, things have not happened.
I have 3 last questions, but I want to start off with the coalitions you've entered into. You have a coalition with the EFF
and other parties
in Ekurhuleni here and here in Tshwane as well. There were discussions within the NEC on whether it is viable for the ANC to enter into a coalition with the EFF in these metros. You're going into another election this year where it's likely this 2026, next year, where it's likely that you will enter into coalitions, where it's likely that the coalitions will be the end result of those elections. Are you going to explore coalitions which mirror the government of national unity, or are you happy with the coalitions that currently exist with the EFF and possibly the Action SA as well?
Remember, our comrades in Gauteng wanted to govern the city with the DA. I mean, the Gauteng with the DA and a few other parties. So there was an intention to do it, and the talks collapsed. So it's not like the ANC was never interested to work with the DA. They collapsed because of number of seats and things like that. Was it worth it, where people could have collapsed the talks because they didn't get an extra seat from the ANC? No, we don't think so. So the ANC, remember, the ANC has also, in the formation of the GNU, had more meetings with the EFF and party of Mr. Zuma than many other parties which are in the GNU. I'm sure you saw how our DSG explained that process. So we wanted to talk with all the parties, but we cannot force them to be part of a coalition government. We think that the coalition arrangements in the metros have the approval of the national leadership, because the national leadership in any way wanted to work with the EFF and the party of Mr. Zuma, even in the GNU. So they wouldn't be surprised that EFF will be prepared to work with ANC in the municipalities. There's no coalition EFF has with the ANC at provincial level. So there was authorization given to the ANC in Gauteng to work with the EFF and other parties. If there are developments or changes, we expect that the ANC and the EFF and other parties will discuss them and how to ensure that what is happening in the 3 metros is solid and is based on clear principles and programs to improve lives of people in the 3 metros.
Now, I want to go back to Johannesburg in terms of the REC. There's been murmur around Mr. Sasabona, that there's a call for Mr. Sasabona to be removed as the secretary of Johannesburg.
Calls by whom?
By some within that REC.
Yeah.
And given that you have this mandate as the provincial task team to unite and renew and rebuild, are you looking at how to ensure that regions do not collapse, and also regions, the divisions within regions, do not affect the local government elections? And are you aware of any calls about Mr. Sasabona being removed from his position?
If a region does not formally communicate with the provincial structure about a decision to remove somebody, individual opinions in any structure are not decisions of the structure. So until Johannesburg formally takes a decision on that matter doesn't exist. It's opinions of individuals in an REC, because people must separate individual opinions and decisions of structures of the organization. There is no decision of the, which was forwarded to the province. As far as I know, I may be wrong, that the secretary must resign. The secretary is still running the organization in Greater Johannesburg. And we have sent a message to all our regions, because they are part of the PTT. Remember that this process, they must help us in the work, because ultimately they are the ones who are going to be implementing decisions with the support and guidance of the PTT. They are supposed to implement decisions of the PTT in the regions. So the message has gone to the ex-officio members of all our regions that they need to help us in implementing the unity, the rebuilding, the renewal, and the strengthening of the organization program.
So you're not looking at disbanding the Johannesburg REC?
You disband a structure which is not functional. You can't disband a structure which is functional. Johannesburg regional leadership meets, they interact with the branches and so on. If a mandate ends, you convert it you convert it into an RTT, because they are a constitutional structure elected by conference. We have not reached a place where Johannesburg structures are dysfunctional. There's this complete dysfunctionality. You only when there's weaknesses which are so serious that's why even now they didn't say you put PEC there. It's reinforcing them with extra capacity, because we got 35% instead of 51 plus. So we think that with this reinforcement, we can then recover lost ground. So we cannot talk disbandment when if things happen, we cannot talk disbandment. On what basis do we disband the regional structure? We can disband the structure on the basis of facts which would have been presented to us. For now, we've got 1 week. You can't talk immediately 1 week you're disbanding people. You can't do that. It's not the best way of rebuilding. Anyway, when the mandates are also coming to an end.
Are you working well with the elected secretary of this province?
Yes, we work well. I mean, remember when I was secretary, I think he was a treasurer in Ekurhuleni. And then he became the secretary of Ekurhuleni. That time when I was secretary, he was treasurer. And then when I was in the PC, he was secretary. And then got elected in 2022. So we've always had a relationship, because he was an office bearer in Ekurhuleni. I met him before the handover report. We had a meeting here for 2-3 hours. It's just only us, the two of us, just talking, because he's still he's my comrade. He's not my opponent. He was elected, and I was not in the PC now from 2022, but I was deployed in the West Rand in Falkville when I was in the National Assembly. My constituency office was in Falkville. So I just focused on working there, and also doing communications work of the ANC nationally as a member of as part of the Department of Communication, Information and Publicity. So I don't have any problem with him. He's part of the PTT. We're going to work in that area with him, like all other former PC members of Gauteng. Because with personalizing or leadership position, it's not good leadership. You must not we can't personalize leadership. Imagine I'm no longer secretary in 2018. I'm angry that I'm no longer a secretary. I can't do that, because these positions are not ours. They belong to the African National Congress.
Now, the last question is around 2027, and I understand what the ANC has said, instructed you as members and leaders of the ANC around 2027. But the reason why I pose this question to you, because it's specific to the province. There's Mr. Paul Mashadile and Mr. Mbalula, who are said to be having ambitions of succeeding Mr. Ramaphosa. And this province is a province that they both are looking for support from. Do you think this is the race for 2027 could possibly derail your work?
Our view is that those people who are focusing on 2027 are completely out of order. We have an organization to rebuild and strengthen. That's a priority. We have to deal with strengthening governance. As I said about the conference of a region, a BBGM or something, that is not going to solve the problems of the people of South Africa. Talking about conference, what does it do to the problems we have, which some of them are exogenous, some of them are endogenous. It has nothing to do with problems of people. The focus should be how do we strengthen governance at national level, provincial level, local level, how we strengthen the organization itself so that it can monitor and supervise its deployees in government, ensuring that we continue with our progressive international policies in South Africa, in the continent and the world. So it's a distraction which we don't need. When we have a strong organization, you can then say, who leads us? You lead a strong organization in communities. You lead a strong organization which guides government. Once you are obsessed with, when you have got these big tasks which you have, some of them relate to our own members, some of them relate to the people of South Africa who would have given us a certain amount of support to be in government. That should be the priority of all the leaders and members of the African National Congress. And at a time when we still have to have an NGC in the organization to evaluate the last 2.5 years, you're already talking about this is what has created problems in the organization. We go to a conference. When we finish that conference, people are thinking about the next conference. That is an ANC. And this, I don't need a mandate. It's not done in the organization. Because when are you going to focus on the fact that we have been given responsibility now to be in local government? You have been given responsibility in the province and nationally. We're the biggest political party at national level. We're the biggest political party at provincial level. We're the biggest political parties in majority of the municipalities in terms of the votes. Even when we have got weaknesses, we remain the biggest organization in municipalities, in the province and at national level. And that should be how do we consolidate that mandate we have been given by the people of Gauteng and the municipalities of Gauteng and focus on their problems. Unlike this distraction we have where people want to derail us. So we are saying that at the moment, our responsibilities are what the National Executive Committee has given us.
And you measure that success with what? In 9 months, when you're looking at your work,
branches
what is the
which
measure
are
of
functioning,
success?
they've got subcommittees which are functioning. We've got lower structures at VD level which function because that's where people are in the voting districts. We've got sub-branches there formed. We've got a functioning regions with subcommittees which are functioning. The governance interface between governance and our organization and those who are in government functions better. We have a PTT which functions and can monitor what the deployees in the provincial government are doing. We have got progress at provincial government level in the departments and so on. By the way, Gauteng still grows above the national average, in terms of economy. It needs to do more. And the investments which the premiers announced are hitting the ground, and some of them are in manufacturing and so on. People have got opportunities. There are more investments in our province, investments in rural areas, in rural provinces, so that we don't have people coming to Gauteng. There are also investments in all other provinces because South Africa is one. It's only not Gauteng only. So for us in Gauteng, when we have got a proper functioning organization at all levels, at the provincial, regional and branch level, that organization is able to work with our deployees effectively in government. For us, that's a success. And then you talk about, then what do we do now? Let's renew the mandate of our structures.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Papo.
Because we have got people who think that the ANC is 113 years old. It has got huge experience. And people must understand that contemporary must work with that, not history, but history, because certain things which are happening may have happened. And then we know how to correct those mistakes. So let's not focus on things which are not important. The SG was correct that even if people may want you to become a leader, you must tell them, now we are focusing on building the organization, rebuilding the organization in line with the conference resolution. Because you want to focus on conference, but you are not focusing on a strong organization and strong government, a strong and effective government. What is the purpose of then that conference? You go there and talk about what? Your personal ambitions and so on? No. You may find that once the work is done, towards the conference there's a consensus about leadership. Because when the organization is functioning effectively, you will know this one is strong here on this one is strong here. There's an agreement, there's a consensus. But if you don't focus on organizational work, what guides the work towards that conference? Is personal interest of what? Personal interest? No, they can't be. It must be guided by interest of members of the African National Congress and the citizens of South Africa.
Thank you.